of Holly's World, and I'm coming to you with yet another video. Today, as I have promised, I'm going to share with you my story about my intervention with the Archangel Michael. Okay, so grab you a chair and pay attention, get comfortable, go get your popcorn, and listen up, because this is a very real and true story, so I want to share it with you. So now, before I start this intervention that I had with the Archangel Michael, I want to tell you the lessons that the Lord God was looking to teach me, because He did this quite some few years ago when I was finishing up my undergrad years, and I knew somewhere in the whole process of there, I began to understand why the intervention needed to take place. So before I get into that, let me just give those three reasons why, before I forget, why he thought well to send his angel, as we all know that he does do at times. He sent his angel. So one of the reasons, okay, let me just see. Okay. The first reason, the one and first main reason that the Lord God in heaven sent his angel was because of this one reason. I have been a very discerning individual from a very long time, even when I was, somewhere in grade school or somewhere, I'm going to say, maybe before that. I have been he gave me the gift. He anointed me to have a highly discerning spirit. So there was one problem with that. I'm not going to say always, a lot of times I second guessed it, because I thought to myself, when I became like a teenager and going into my 20s, I was thinking, well, gee, how in the world could I possibly know those things? How is it that I could know that, walking into a room, this person is thinking to do this, or that person is thinking that, or having that feeling about me or some other situation? How could that be? So a lot of times I second guessed it, because I thought maybe I was being paranoid. Oh, this can't possibly, maybe I'm being paranoid, I'm trying to shake myself, get back into reality. But that was not the case. And so the Lord God in heaven, after I graduated, finished my undergrad, he was like, okay, enough is enough with her. He called on Michael. He actually called on Michael, the Archangel Michael, and he did. Sometimes the Lord God in heaven has to use the bad angel. And he did. He called on one of his bad angels to show me this thing. I'm going to need you all to have this intervention with her and show her the way. So that was one reason why. The second reason was because he wanted to show me something, because he knew that he knew something I didn't know at the time, that I would be doing ministry. So he wanted to let me know that, listen, I don't want you to judge a book by its cover, because everyone who is toting a Bible or even sitting in church, don't get it twisted, that doesn't mean they're with me. I want you to see this full throttle. So that was the second lesson. And then the third lesson was, don't judge a book by its cover. That's what I want you to know, people. Now, I want you to pay attention, because you are going to see why all these lessons was in this one interaction. And this interaction took over probably about 2, I'm going to say 2 or maybe 3 days, but I believe it's just only 2. Remember correctly. Okay, so listen, it was 2 days. So listen up and pay attention. So it was the end of my undergrad year, and I decided, well, I wanted, before I get to starting working, my new job and all this stuff, I want to go and get me a physical, so I want to make sure I'm in tip-top shape and start my new job, because I don't want to have to stop to go get some type of a physical, right? I want to make sure I get, I'm in tip-top shape. So I decided, now I'm not a doctor person, but I thought to do that. I was like, well, let me just make sure I'm okay. You know what I'm saying? So I went there was a clinic that I normally would go to. It was not too far from my neighborhood. It's about a half a mile. It's pretty much in my neighborhood. And I decided on this day to walk. Now, let me give you the pre-story, the pre of this. And on that morning early, I did my laundry. And I lived in a complex in the Bronx where there were quite a few buildings on one side, on the left side of the complex, and there was quite a few buildings on the right side. And then on both ends of the opening of that complex, there was security booths, right? And then in the middle of the complex, like downstairs in this one particular building, there was a laundromat, what we call a laundromat, where you do your clothes and your laundry, you wash, you dry, you fold, and all that stuff, right? So on this morning, I got up early, so when I'm going to get up early, I'm going to do my laundry, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to the clinic, right? Okay. So I did that, and when I went, I put my clothes in, I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. It was the middle of the week. I said I'm going to do it because nobody hardly is down there, when I'm doing my laundry. So I will go ahead and do my laundry on this day, which was the middle of the week. It was probably Wednesday or Thursday. So I went down there, did my laundry, and when I went back down, there was no one there when I first went in to put my clothes in the washer. But when I went upstairs and waited a while, did what I did, came back down for about maybe 30, 45 minutes, there was one woman in there. And so I didn't say anything. I proceeded to go inside and take my clothes out of the washer. And she was a neighbor, but she lived in a different building from me. So she said to me, while I was taking my clothes out, she said, well, I just took my clothes out of the dryer near where right there. If you want to, since the dryer is still hot, you can go ahead and put your things in there. And plus it still had some time on it, some drying time. So I don't know. I didn't do nothing on purpose. I just am a very particular person at times. So, I don't know, just a little bit, I don't know, I'm not going to call it supernatural, but I don't know. So I took my clothes out, I had my clothes in my hand, and I walked like when she said that, I was like, no, that's okay. And I walked like 2 dryers down from that dryer and put my clothes in the dryer. Now, I wasn't trying to purposely be some type of a way. I was just, I don't know, I'm just that type of, I don't know, call me superstitious, call me discerning, where I feel like I just don't want to for some reason. But I put my clothes 2 dryers down from exactly where she said, right? So after I put it in, and she was like, she was like, I don't want to be bothered with these prima donna types and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I didn't say anything because she was an older woman, older than me, and I was being respectful. I was like, well, thinking to myself, I wasn't going to say anything. I just kept doing what I was doing, and I was not going to give in to that type of negativity. But it went in my head. I was thinking, I was like, to myself, how did she call me that? She doesn't even know me. She's a neighbor who lives in one of the buildings, and I've always seen her a lot. Coming and going, you can't help to see the person. But I was like, well, why in the world would she call me that? So after I put my clothes in the dryer, I proceeded to go upstairs into the next building, which is where my building was. And I just kind of went on a rant when I got up there, just when I'm praying to the Lord sometimes, God, about stuff, I just go on this little who is she to do that? How dare she call me? Where do these people come from, I said, where they can call me something and they don't even know me. Because when I thought about it, it's like prima donna has to do with, you have to be around the person to know they're a prima donna. And how dare you do that? You haven't been around me yet. We haven't had no conversation other than hi and how you do it and whatnot and passing. So I kind of went on that little rant like that, and I was a little bit taken aback by it. So, excuse me, if I try to pick up. So I just kind of had to, reboot when I was in my apartment, just kind of catch myself and just like, okay, thinking to myself, just calm down after that rant, because I was like, who is this person to call me names like that? It wasn't like a curse name, but it was like, you don't even know me to call me that. So anyway, I kind of just decided, just let it go back downstairs, wait till your things are finished, get your stuff, and go and just take your things and go back upstairs and just give her the respect and let that, don't say anything. And I did it. I went back, and when my clothes were dry, got my things that are dry, and put it back. And brought it in back home. Now, let's skip to me walking down, after I was done, I'm walking down the street, and I'm going to this clinic, because I did that laundry in the early parts of the morning. So I decided it's time to go. I'm going to go to the clinic now and get these things done. I always have this to-do list. I got to do A, got to do B, and I'm not going to let anybody obstruct me from my to-do things in that day. So I was going. I got to the clinic, and I walked inside the clinic. Now, on the first floor, the clinic only has 2 floors. Down in the corridor in the main, there are some clinic offices, whatever you want to call it, but in the middle, in the center, is a big round desk, and it's the information desk, right? So I proceed to walk in, and I did notice that there was a man standing there. He had on this peculiar green suit, but I didn't say anything to him. He didn't say anything to me, but I'm very visual, so I noticed him because he had on this emerald green suit, and it wasn't that cold for that. It was emerald green pants, emerald green jacket, and the jacket was unusual because it buttoned all the way from the bottom all the way up, and it was sort of like a mock neck, if you would, turtleneck, and it came all the way up here, and you could see that it was somewhat a little bit heavier than the usual seat, I don't know. But the first thing I was thinking that, when it's the end of school, everybody knows it's hot, it's like June and stuff. And I was like, it's kind of hot, but I noticed the suit because the suit reminded me of a person who is a pimp. And I was like, what is he doing with that emerald green? First of all, emerald green? What is he doing with that emerald green suit on? And it's kind of like, looks like a pimp suit or something. Excuse me, you guys, I'm sweating, it's hot here. And I'm standing near the balcony, and it's like I need to go out. So I'm like, what is he doing with this emerald green suit? Like, it's hot, and that suit looks like a pimp suit. And I was like, I don't get it. And I was thinking to myself, he had a little, and that's the thing about it, because he had this like slightly curly afro that kind of put him, in my mind, because I'm so visual, back in the 70s or something, that look. And I was like, huh? But I kept walking, and I walked to the elevator and decided to go upstairs to where the doctor's office was, where the doctor was I normally go to. And so I went, got in the elevator, got out of the elevator, walked down to that clinic, and so I went to check in, and the, I guess the nurse, whoever at the desk said, okay, I told her what I wanted to do, and she was like, okay, so did you go downstairs and go to the triage first? And, and I was like, ugh, because I was trying to avoid that, as usual. I don't really like to go to the doctor, so I was trying to avoid the triage, but she directed me to go back. No, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go back downstairs and go to the triage, yeah. So I went back downstairs, headed to the elevator, went back downstairs. Now, listen to this. Before I got downstairs, I went to wait for the elevator on the second floor, and when the elevator came, there was a man in the elevator. He was a young man. He was in his 20s. I could tell, he had a 20s look, whatever. And I said to myself, well, I need to move over. It was a bit, the inside of the elevator is pretty big. But I was standing in the front of the opening of the elevator, and so I just kind of did like this a little bit so he could come out. And when he came out, he purposely boomed me on my shoulders. So the first thing I was like, oh my God, what did he do that for? And I moved over so he could get out of the way, so that I could get out of the way so that he could, have a lot of space. But then something else went into my spirit. Now, this is where this high discerning spirit went into action, because the first feeling I got was, after that, was, oh my God, this man has a very evil and demonic spirit. That's what I thought. He has a very evil and demonic spirit, and it just hit me. It's like, now I was really annoyed. I was like, ew, thinking to myself, oh, how dare he hit me, and I moved over. But I realized something else, that he did it on purpose. So I was like, I said, well, okay, I'm not going to let anybody veer me off of what I'm supposed to be doing here today. Even though I was like, this is the second verse, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going, oh. But then I just got into the elevator, pressed the button with an attitude, like, poof. I was so mad, and the elevator went down. Now, mind you, when he got off the elevator on the second floor, he was headed toward the clinic where I was headed. But I was going downstairs to the triage. So when I got off of the elevator on the first floor, there was that man again in the green suit. And now he begins to speak to me. So he said hi and all this stuff. And then he begins, it was really weird, people. He begins to give me this sort of a pep talk, sort of a advice talk. And I'm like, where's this coming from? He was like, just telling me about, good and evil. And then he goes on to say, and you know something else? He said, you know what, you are a prima donna. He said, and no, it's not because you have a bad attitude, it's because Tauruses are known to be a prima donna. And he said, and so are Aries. So you are a prima donna. And I'm like, well, like, what's going on here? So now my spirit is starting to realize, I'm looking around like, does anybody see this very supernatural situation going on? Because I realized at that moment, because I never saw this man, and I felt like what went into my spirit at the time was, this is purposeful. This is the Lord God in heaven trying to teach me, trying to show me something. This man, this man has this green suit on because he is out of the ordinary. He doesn't belong here. You see, he doesn't belong here. He's not a normal human. He is an angel. So he begins to give me this pep talk. He begins to talk about good and evil and how to choose good and evil. You must choose. You have to pay attention, he says. And then he tells me that I am a prima donna, like he was at that the situation, like he was there, and I was like, nobody else was there. And not only that, but that man I have never seen before in my neighborhood, nowhere. I was like, where did he come from, And then now listen carefully. After we were having this talk, during the talk, as he giving me this pep talk, as he telling me that, yes, I am a prima donna, because, Tauruses are known to be that, in walks this Caucasian woman, because he was a black man, in walks this Caucasian woman, and she looked I never forget, because she was petite, kind of short, very thin. She had on these cut-off denim, washed out denims, and a little scraggly t-shirt, and her hair looked oily, that little part in the middle, and a little oily looking hair, blonde hair. And the first thing I thought was, wait a minute, she looks like a prostitute. Okay, now I'm like, he looks like a pimp, she looks like a prostitute, and he's giving me a pep talk about choosing good and evil. And I was like, no, this is not normal. This is an angel of the Lord. And as questionable as I was about my discerning, I knew that I was like, this is not normal. This is something having to do with the Lord God in heaven. He's showing me something. So the next thing I thought, pay attention. And then I started looking around to see if there's anybody else. I'm looking at the receptionist at the information desk, and I'm like, does she know that this is an angel of the Lord? Because every time I'm in the presence of an angel, the first thing I do is I look around to everybody else to see, do they know? Is it just me that knows that they're angels, that they're not humans? They're here, they look like humans, but they're not humans. They're angels of the Lord. Okay, so let's continue. So he gave me that pep talk. I go inside the triage. I sit down and wait for my turn after I went to the desk or whatever. And in comes the evil man again. The evil man who bumped me on the shoulder. And he sits, plops his little tanny right down beside me. He doesn't even go to the triage. He just plops down right beside me. So I'm sitting there, and listen to this now. He's toting a holy Bible. I never forget that holy Bible. It looked like a nice one with the leather bounding, and it's nice, thick. And I was like, and it says Holy Bible on the outside, and I said to myself, So he begins to talk to me. Now he's talking. He didn't bump me. He's beginning to talk. And he's talking about, this and that, how he tries to be good and trying to sound holy and righteous and blah, blah, blah. And at the time, now my curiosity is struck on where is this going? Because a minute ago, this man bumped me, and I felt this evil spirit. I wasn't, okay? So the Lord is taking me somewhere with this, like, I'm all right now. That what he was, you better be paying attention, because he's vile. So he's talking to me, and he's talking about wanting to know the scriptures, blah, 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 and boom, boom, boom. So then the triage person called me, we get that over with, and it's time for me to go upstairs. And then he was like, I'm going up there too. I have to go back up to the triage, to the clinic's office. So mind you, this person didn't even go see nobody in the triage, but he said, come on, I got to go that way too, he says, back upstairs. So he begins to walk ahead of me, and I'm behind him looking curious and, and like scratching my head like, what the heck? So, because I'm a curious person, I said, I'm going to see where this is going. So we went, and I had to go back upstairs anyway. So I said, well, I may as well see where this is going. So the angel of the Lord, who's standing with that green suit, standing there with that little prostitute-looking woman, he looking like a pimp, said to me, as I was walking behind him, he said, and she's still following him. Hint, hint, hint. You see what I'm trying to? Then I was on it then. I was like, this is an angel of the Lord. Because how could you know? How could you possibly know what I'm doing? He's trying to warn me, people. This was an angel of the Lord. So we go back upstairs. We go in the clinic where I need to go to. I sit down for a few minutes. They call me and I go back there and get what I need to get done. I come back out. And then he says, can you sit down for a minute? And I just need you to help me with the scriptures, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, okay. So I sat down there with him. Now, mind you, I was pretty much somewhat of a baby Christian at the, not so into my Christendom, even though I was. But, I was still learning a lot. You know what I'm saying? So then he's starting to talk to me, and time is going on. I'm just like, okay, this time, this is going nowhere. And then he goes, and then when I said, okay, I'm going to get ready and go, but I hope, I wish you well, blah, blah. So he then proceeds to try to, can I get your number so we can study Bible together and blah, blah, this, and maybe you can explain some of the scriptures to me, I don't know. So now there's where the innocent part now you come. I said, well, I don't, okay, well, I guess it's not anything harmful of it. I didn't see the harm in it, so I did. And I said, well, maybe that's what the Lord God in heaven wants me to do, invite him to church, because I was going to church then. I was in the campus ministry and all this stuff. So, yeah, it makes sense. Okay. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. So I gave him my number. We switched numbers. And then he said, and something else. I would like to give you this bracelet of mine. Here, take it. And I was like, no, I don't want, keep your bracelet. I don't want it. And he said, no, here, take it. So he kept being persistent about it. So I said, okay, I'll bracelet. I was like, I wasn't feeling some kind of way about taking it. I was like, this is what I felt like, okay. But that was another clue. If you have to feel that way, something wrong, So, but I took the bracelet and was on my way. I went back home. I got home. I don't think an hour went by. This person called me. And then when he called me, he proceeded to start talking. And let me tell you something, people. He didn't talk about nothing about the Bible. He was talking about all sorts of vile stuff, like vile sexual acts, 3Bs, 4Bs, dogs, and type of stuff like this. And I was like, this guy is not who he professed himself to be. So I got him off of the phone and all like that. Next day, Listen to this part, y'all. I was coming from work, and guess what happened? I get off to the subway because I lived in a neighborhood in the Bronx where the subways were elevated. And so as I came down the stairs of the subway when I got off, I looked, and because I had to take a bus home too. And the bus that I normally take home was right there, right? I run to the bus because there wasn't a line. Normally there's a line there because there's usually a lot of people getting off the subway if you know New York, and you have, I usually try to run to get me the first on the bus so I can get a good spot on the seat in the bus, get a seat and get next to the window like I always like to do, right? So I did. I got on the bus. I was one of the first persons on the bus, and I like to always look out the window to see if I see one of my friends coming off of the subway so that I can say, come on girl, come sit near me. And I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking, and then all of a sudden, I see him. It's the angel of the Lord with that same green suit. And he's coming down the stairs of the subway, and I was like,